Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily presented by Amazon Prime for January 13th, 2026. I'm Dave DuFour here with Zena Keita and John Hollinger. Coming up, we're going deep with John Hollinger on Ja Morant trades, Michael Porter Jr. trades, rookies that he likes, everything. Stick around. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Zena. Hey, John Hollinger joining the show. Thanks for hanging out with us. John's in Sacramento. You've been, stalking the Houston Rockets? What are you doing in Sacramento right now?
Just seeing if the Kings can manage to try to win and still be worse than all the teams that are tanking. I think it's a fascinating story.
Ooh,
they actually won yesterday, but just sort of luck of the draw. I had a good back-to-back here with Houston, LA in town, and this is actually a wonderful place to come to do this if it weren't for the team. It's a beautiful arena. And,
tells me all the time how much he loves
great
Sacramento.
Coffee here, and yeah.
You actually had a really good story at The Athletic yesterday about the Rockets and the way that they had to get to the arena. So what happened there? There were no rooms at the inn. Is that the situation? Like, what's going on in Sacramento that was preventing the Rockets from getting a hotel?
So basically, there's one hotel here where everyone tries to stay. It's the Sawyer, and it's connected to the arena. It's the nicest hotel. When I worked with the Grizzlies, I kind of helped with a lot of our team travel. It was one of my jobs because everyone wears like 20 hats in an NBA front office. And so I know somehow how the sausage gets made here. So basically the Lakers are here. We're already in the hotel because they're playing today. And the Knicks flew from Portland after their game yesterday afternoon to Sacramento because they want to get out of the rain, even though they don't play here until Wednesday. So kind of a quirk. They had 3 days off. We were just like, we're going to get the hell out of Portland and come down. So, and I think they booked their hotels first. So then the Rockets didn't have any room tonight. And I don't know what blocked them the 2 nights ago. I'm not sure because those teams weren't there then. But anyway, so they stayed in San Francisco the last 2 nights and they took a bus. You guys know, it's 85 miles. Usually doesn't take 85 minutes, though.
Right.
So I'm not sure how long it took. It was a Sunday afternoon. Maybe it wasn't that bad, but they had to leave early and allow for all that. And they're just kind of get to the arena. They're at the end of a road trip already. They've tied a league record 23 of 36 on the road. Like, they looked exhausted yesterday. And it showed. They lost to the Kings. And they flew back to Houston right after the game. Most teams in the Central Time Zone, I know that's where we were in Memphis. When you play in California, you stay over and then you fly the next day so you don't get in at like 4 a.m. And the Rockets were just like, screw this, we out of here. Because again, they didn't have anywhere to stay here anyway. And again, there's certain things like when you travel with an NBA team, you can't just stay at the North Natomas La Quinta Inn, you got there's only a couple.
We're going to have to bleep this so La Quinta doesn't hate us.
The La Quinta's taking some strays.
Right.
No offense,
I will
guys.
say they let your dog stay for free. So shout out to La Quinta when you're traveling across the country.
That's good to know.
Give them some free publicity.
Okay,
if you have an NBA team and all the players have their dog with them, then
La Quinta is it.
That's
right.
Okay. Let's pivot away from that very strange travel story, which is very interesting. And I have questions for the Sawyer, but alas, there are questions being had around the league around a particular player in Tennessee. That is Ja Morant. We know that he's had some games out with that right calf contusion. But that's not really the question around him right now. Contusion in quotes,
yes, that's
right?
A quote.
The question really is about the trade rumors, the fielding offers. You've talked a little bit about this. You've written about this. What's the situation there? Lay out the scene.
Yeah, I think it's time. I think both parties realize it, kind of like with the Hawks and Trae Young that we just had. Part of the reason they traded Desmond Bane this past season is because they realized they weren't good enough with the Ja, Jaren, Desmond core, and that Ja wasn't reliable enough to be the main piece of a team like that. So they wanted to get more assets, set themselves up either to draft that guy or trade for that guy. But part of the reason to do that with Desmond Bane, who they loved and valued, was a good culture guy and all that, was that Ja wasn't the guy. And it looked like he was going to be, that guy that you could build the whole team around. And Now it's more like, okay, he's going to be good, but he's going to be available for half the games, and he's not really going to be a top 15 player in the league. So, yeah, what are we doing here? Yeah, exactly. So now even as recently as I want to say this summer or something, Zach Kleiman was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. This is fantasy. We're not trading him. Totally changed his tune. Now it's like, okay, phone lines are open. So usually on the team side, you don't do that unless you have at least one fish on the hook, and so you can see
like Trae
what else.
Young and
exactly. Like the Hawks knew they had Washington in the red zone, so then they could say, okay, let's open this up. Let's canvas the league. Let's make sure we're not missing any other opportunities before we go ahead with this. I suspect that's kind of where the Grizzlies are. We'll see. The part that's fun for me is that when you trade a player, the new team is responsible for his travel arrangements. So I want to see a team have to fly him in from Berlin.
That's right. The Grizzlies just landed in Berlin yesterday.
That's crazy.
I'm sure he's going to want to stick around for the game in London. So, I'm sure he can tag along.
Good club scene in London. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not a bad one. Okay, let's talk about Ja and in relation to Trae, because one of the issues with Trae Young was there really wasn't a market. There was one team that was willing to take what at this point, I guess you could just say is a risk. If there's only one team, it's seen as a risky deal. Well, with Ja, he's got another year on his contract compared to Trae Young. So you're taking on longer term money, and he plays less than Trae Young. This season is a little bit, it's an aberration for Trae. He's usually he's out there playing games. Ja doesn't play. You already said that. So how does a team talk themselves into investing into Ja Morant at this point?
I think it's a couple of things. I think Ja is younger. So you think maybe you give yourself a little more runway. The extra year on his deal could be seen as a feature and not a bug. Like Trae, you have to deal with this contract right away almost.
Right.
And you have a little more time with Ja to play things out and see, but before you really have to make a decision on paying him. And so from what I'm told, that the market is going to end up being a little stronger for Ja than it will be for Trae. I mean, we'll see here. The other thing with Ja, because he has more time left on his deal, the Grizzlies might be more amenable to taking deals back that have time on them also. So it may be the type of thing where, okay, you get a first round pick, but you're also getting a contract that is undesirable and has 3 years left to run.
Now we've heard a few different landing spots. I know Miami's been in there. We've heard Milwaukee. What are the teams that you're hearing in terms of where he could potentially go?
Yeah, I think Miami and Milwaukee are both possibilities. I think Toronto is definitely a team to watch. I do think they have some urgency there to make some things happen at the trade deadline. So that could be a possibility. Well, I mean, and Quickly's contract is not great. Yeah. So if you have Quickly as the matching contract, then you're not holding your nose so much on Morant's deal. And there's just a question of what does Toronto have to do to kind of spice things up enough for Memphis to offset that. So you can see how that type of deal can get to the finish line.
Well, also Quickly plays. So if you're Memphis, you just need a guy who can play point guard sometimes if you're going to try to compete, which I think that maybe becomes a bigger question for Memphis is where do they go post Ja Morant trade? Because
I've had people tell me, now Memphis insists this is not the case, but I have people tell me that like, okay, what happens now with Jaren is the next thing, because they could decide at some point to move on from Jaren and do more of a down to the studs rebuild. I think the Grizzlies still think their core is too good to do that, that even what they have right now with Edey and Coward and Jaren and their bench is really good. They just need one or two frontline guys, and then they're right back in the thick of things in the West. I think that's their conception of their team anyway. So now maybe in another year they change their tune on that too, but that's where they are right now.
Do we think that the statistical decline that we've seen Ja had this season, he's not shooting as well from the floor. He's missed 20 games so far this season. We know the explosiveness is there. We know the capability is there, but the numbers are the lowest of his career. Do we think that is going to impact the package that teams are willing to provide for him?
I don't think so, because I think teams understand that there was other things going on that impacted those numbers this year. So if you're trading for him, you're not expecting to get the guy from 2022. I think that that scenario is like the fantasy upside, if everything goes perfect. But realistically, can you get the Ja when he played from 2 years ago, from last year, who is still, when he played, a really good player? Again, has not played more than 6 consecutive games in nearly 3 years due to injuries and suspensions and other various things.
Yeah, Zena's face when you said that, by the way,
I want
a gif of that because that was shocking when I read it. And we watch as many games as maybe anybody out there. And just to think he hasn't strung together more than 6 games in that long is pretty absurd, even for a guy who doesn't play, 60 games in a season. You wrote about the Ja Morant trade over at The Athletic. And if you guys want more context on that, definitely go over there and read it. But you also mentioned Michael Porter Jr. Is he a lock to move by the deadline?
So I had somebody tell me this, and I was surprised because I did not think this. In my mind, so Brooklyn owes a pick swap to Houston next year. And Michael Porter's under contract for next year, and he has been playing great for the Nets. So in my mind, Brooklyn would say, okay, let's keep this guy next year when we're actually trying to win. And what I was told was that actually it's kind of the opposite, and the Nets would like to sell high right now, and then they can come back and reload the trough later and try to put their team together for next year. But if you don't really think that Porter's your guy there for the long term, that the move is to cash in right now, because once you get into next year, he's got 1 year on his deal. You got to pay him or extend him or do whatever. If you're not willing to do that, and you don't think you can rely on him to be part of kind of a core going beyond that, then your best move is to move him right now for value and then maybe turn that value into the guys you really believe in.
Now, I've heard, a lot of folks have heard, John, we just saw each other out in the Bay, and I feel like that is a landing spot for a good old boy MPJ. Thoughts on this framework that people are trying to put together, including multiple teams? And we know it took multiple teams to get the Jimmy Butler trade done. Yeah. What are the chances they're repeating history here? Yeah,
I mean, just for Golden State to take in 40 is tough. I mean, they can get there, but again, it has to be multiple players. And the thing is, because Brooklyn is already $15 million under the cap, it's a little easier to stuff money into a deal with them than it is with some other teams. So I mean, that is plausible to me. That obviously is Kuminga would be in it. And then it's a question of what asset-wise would Golden State want to put in beyond that? Because they can get to Porter's salary with, like, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but Kuminga and Moody and one other guy, and you're basically there. So I don't think that's going to be a massive barrier for Golden State. I think it's more... would they have enough draft capital to satisfy Brooklyn and have the best offer? And then second to that, are they okay going forward having Porter at 40 and Steph at his money and Draymond at his money and Jimmy at his money? That's for that, right? You don't really have much of a chance to build much else around that, right? When you get into that, you're going to be in the tax, you're going to be limited, taxpayer exceptions, second apron, all that, bunch of minimum guys. And that's kind of what's hurting Golden State right now, is that they just don't have enough quality after their top guys. And what does their future look like? That's an interesting one, though. Yeah. And what does their future look like? If you're giving away draft capital to get guys, you got to win now, and then who knows what your future is going to look like. Yeah. They're like a win now team that isn't quite good enough to win now. And so
it's a win now play-in team. I mean, listen, they can maybe make it out of the play-in.
Shout out Chicago Bulls, right?
That's right. So the other day,
I think that's a real issue. That, I mean, when you get a Jimmy Butler level player, that's one thing. If they could get like Giannis, that's another thing. But Porter's good. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's just not at that level where he's going to move the needle that much if you're basically an average team.
Yeah. The other day I had Sam Amick on the show, and I asked him for a surprise name that might pop up during trade discussions. He said Zion. And since then, the Pelicans have come out and said, no, we're not moving any of these guys that everybody wants. Can you give us a surprise name? Like, what's a name that we're going to hear over the course of the next few weeks that may shock us?
I mean, is Daniel Gafford enough of a surprise? I don't know.
Like that. That to me is the
obvious. Yeah. Nobody talks about him, but he's a good player. He's going to help somebody a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And now that the AD conversation has kind of moved on because of his injury, right. I think teams are going to start talking about Gafford a little more.
Yeah, I mean, he is at least going to be maybe one of the more impactful names.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about Trey maybe not playing. Who knows what happens depending on where Ja goes. Yeah, that's a good. I like that name though. Guys, stick around after the break. We're going to ask John about some of the rookies that he's seen and why we've underrated Kon Knueppel. If you guys follow John's writing, you know that he's always on the road, whether he's watching, the Sacramento Kings somehow beat the Rockets, or he's going to some college tournament up in Seattle, Washington to watch 5 or 6 games in a day. This guy watches more basketball than me, and that's a lot.
That's saying a lot.
This one of maybe 5 people I know that watches more basketball than me. So, John, look, you've been on these rookies for years. You know them well. We are kind of in love with this class. It's amazing the talent that we've seen so far. I hear 2026 is going to be even better. Who stood out to you in the rookie class? I mean, obviously Cooper Flagg and Kon Knueppel, and we'll talk about them. But who stood out to you the most so far?
Well, I mean, Coop's got to be the number one guy still. But I mean, to me, Kon Knueppel's been even better than I thought, and more quickly than I thought. His ability to do the little kung fu off-arm fighting that you have to do in the NBA when you drive the basketball, like, he is strong. He wards guys off, and then he stops, and they keep going and end up under the stanchion. He's got a nice little 15-footer. He can really shoot. He can shoot off a movement, different platforms. But he's not just a shooter. And I think people kind of pegged him as that coming in, and he's just got a lot more to his game. He's a good passer. He doesn't force anything. He can take a hit at the rim. So even though he's not a nuclear vertical athlete, I mean, he can get a lot of stuff done just with his shooting ability and his power.
I feel like when on draft night, when he was called, my immediate instinct was like, oh, great. Like, LaMelo can do the drive thing. Brandon Miller, like, y'all, you guys do the in the paint thing. You guys play up and down. They've got an outside shooter. They've spaced it out. Great. To see him playmaking and creating has been incredibly impressive. But it also worked out that he's in a position and on a team where that can be showcased. When you look at his teammate, his former Duke teammate, Cooper Flagg, initially, Cooper didn't quite have that ability to be drafted into a position that worked for him. It seems like Dallas has found a gem in Ryan Nembhard. And they've been able to find someone that allows Cooper Flagg to now play more into his position, play off the ball, be able to do things more so on the wing. What do you make of the evolution that Cooper has had from those first few games where he's definitely playing out of position with the ball in his hands way more to now what we're seeing now?
Yeah, who would have thought that a guy that played 4 his whole career would struggle as an NBA point guard?
Not Jason
Kidd. Put him there from day one.
Jason Kidd believes in these guys, man.
Yeah, that's true. Jason Kidd's like, you can be me. You can be me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought they really put Cooper in the most impossible position to succeed at the start of the year. It wasn't just that. Like, they were playing these crazy huge lineups, not much spacing, not much ability for him to get into a slashing game. Really put it on him to be an outside shooter, which is probably the weakest part of his game. So now I think things have moved to the point where, like, okay, he's playing as a forward now. He's playing as a secondary ball handler, or when he does handle the ball, he's handling the ball against other 6'8" guys. And it's just a different game for him now. I think it's much more comfortable for him. Like you said, with Nembhard out there, just like having a real point guard on that team has made a huge difference. It's actually, I mean, it's really helped Brandon Williams too, actually, because now he comes in off the bench and all he does is get points, which is all he wants to do anyway. He doesn't have to come in there at the start of the game and like, I got to get AD involved. I got to get Cooper involved. I've never done this before. Like, I don't know. So I just think it's worked out better for everyone there. And I think actually playing without AD, it will help Cooper a little too, I think, because I think there's just more space out there for the other Mavs when they play without AD. I mean, even though they'll get cooked on defense now, but offensively, I think it's going to make life somewhat easier for Coop, actually.
Before we get out of here, I'm going to ask you, who's your favorite guy in the 2026 draft, and where would you like to see him go?
Oh, you mean like kind of little undervalued or whatever?
Yeah, sure.
So I think there's a clear 1, 2, 3. I don't think Caleb Wilson from North Carolina is getting enough shine as like the number 4 guy in this draft. I mean, he has some really explosive plays in transition, like skinny guy who can still really rebound. It takes him like right off the rim, like above the square, like it hits the rim, bounces up, and he just like grabs it.
Not waiting.
Yeah,
I like that.
Really good playing off of spins. Like you would think, again, like skinny guy like that, he might, get shoved off bounce or whatever. No. He just like dribbles into a guy, turns and like gets an advantage, goes right over him. Really impressive that way. Needs to improve his outside shot is the biggest thing, but I really like him. I've been really impressed both times I've seen him in person this year. And so we'll see what he does the second half of the season. I'm going to see Duke and Carolina in a couple weeks. I'll see him in the ACC tournament. So yeah, I'm excited for him though. Think he's number 4 right now and still has a chance to push in that top 3 where I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, Boozer, the kid from Kansas, whose name I'm blanking on,
Peterson.
And AJ, yeah, thank you. And AJ DeBanza, who I just saw score 20 against Utah, even though they were doubling him on every play. I mean, it's a really impressive top 3, but I think it's actually a really impressive top 4.
Wow. Okay. See, now that's news to me because I've just heard the top 3 and then top 6. So top 3 and then the next 3 guys are pretty good, but you're telling me that Caleb Williams might break into that.
Wilson, yes, he's got a shot to break into that top 3 to me.
All right, where do you want to see these guys go? Who do you want to win the lottery? I mean, just for your own entertainment purposes, who would you like to see win the lottery?
I mean, for the love of God, can we have an East team win it for once?
I agree. Like, can we, please.
And
early games need some help.
Right. Obviously, there you go. I live in Atlanta. They have the better of New Orleans or Milwaukee, so they basically could get 2 shots at it in this lottery. So,
okay.
I'm gonna go Homer here.
All right,
give my Hawks another shot. Don't just give them the Risa Shea lottery. Like, come on.
I mean, Jalen Johnson is the real putting player. Up a triple-double averaging.
Jalen's been amazing.
Basically.
Yeah,
so good. All right, guys, go and read John over at The Athletic. Not only does he have great basketball knowledge, insider knowledge from his time as front office, but also pretty good takes on hotels, I guess, if you believe his article from today. Thank you, John, for hanging out with us. Thanks to Zena. As always, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.